Greetings, it is I, the legendary Toxked. Sorry it has been so long since I've posted last. I've been quite busy with school, certifications, and a bunch of other stuff keeping me off the streets at night. So, I wanted to do some posting. Well, I wanted to brag about my new wallpapers and everything I've gotten out of the game. I'm sure you're all jealous now. But I've had a lot of questions about some technical aspects of the Axis&Allies real-time strategy game. So I wanted to go into a few things, and one of which is actually ties into the gameplay itself at the beginning. But before I get there, I want to give props to a guy running a website called Axis-And-Allies.com. I'll put it into the comments. It's a really cool site and community about Axis&Allies, the real-time strategy game. You can look up strategies, unit stats, all sorts of things. It's really quite cool. I stumbled upon it a while back and wanted to give him a little promo because it's a really cool site all about the game. So, if you already knew about it, great. If not, go check it out. The game itself, I believe one of the reasons it had such a long life, it's held on a lot longer than many other real-time strategy games. Truth be told, there's real-time strategy games, there's so many of them out there that have been made over the years, I couldn't even try to count them all. But Axis&Allies has had a certain nostalgia. It's held on a lot longer. Some of them were popular for a while and then become passé. A&H has really held on. And one of the key reasons why, I believe, is that when they were making the game, they had the 5 factions as best they could and still make them playable. They pandered each one to the strengths and weaknesses of the actual armies in the war. Second, they made each faction with such a variety of units that you can really do anything you want with them. For example, there was one game I was in with a friend online. We teamed up with this other guy doing a 3-on-3. No, I think we were playing computer. Aaron. We were playing, and the guy was doing just scout infantry. That was his army. He had 3 groups of 6 functioning, and I just couldn't believe. There were several times I found myself just basically stopping, just watching him play. One group would be engaging, one group would be disengaging, another group would be recharging, just a constant. They were so fast. I would not have expected that army to run well. I tried in a test game to see if I could mimic that and get it to work, and I couldn't. I just couldn't get them, keep an eye on them quickly enough and keep things going. I just was in awe watching him. And I've seen that with many other games, or in matches with people do some really creative things. And just the level of variables that they put into the game where everyone can pretty much do whatever they want and make them work. Most people adopt a favorite faction. I probably would, in my opinion, predominantly you're going to see Germany and US. My wife prefers Russia, and we play extensively. And in my group, there's one person who does Japanese really well. Anytime we get together, we always tell him he has to learn Japanese because it's just fun to watch him play the Japanese, because you wouldn't expect the Japanese to be able to do that. When I just want to play and have fun, I play Japanese just because they're fun, our faction to run. My wife and I were playing this game, and this is just one big Japanese civil war, basically. We were all Japanese and just playing around. Anyway, back to the game. Now, the information... Well, first I'll go over some information on installing that may give you some shortcuts and options that you didn't know of. I found, some years ago I did some testing, and found that if I installed it on a thumb drive, I just created a folder, called it Axis&Allies, inside it 2 folders, one disk 1, the other one disk 2, copied the contents. It wasn't anything elaborate system imaging, it was just copy over paste, and plug it into a computer, clicked on the exe file, just curious if it would work, and it loaded up, installed just fine in a fraction of the time it takes to do it off CD. But it's about a minute, and it will install versus the 5 or 7 minutes that it takes to install off disk. Very quick, very rapid. I then just created a text document putting a few notes on installing with the registration codes that I have, because I have several copies of the game. Then when you go and after you install, go into the text document, highlight and copy the registration code, then go in, open the game, brings up the window asking for the registration code. You just paste it in. It won't let you copy it if the game's open. Then you're just good. It'll just load up and play. You're fine. The versions I have do not require the disk. It doesn't play off disk. I believe there were at least 3 different production runs that I know of. One of them I think did require playing off disk. If you have one of those, you want to play on multiple systems, because they built the game originally that you could play, and you couldn't go online play, but in a LAN game you could play them all on the same registration code without a problem. Probably just do a image disk, a copy of the disk you play off of. That should work. Also, I used to think that the registration codes were dependent on that game, but I found if you mix them around, it isn't a problem. Some games, I think Diablo 2 was like that, where if you got your registration codes lost or mixed, you were stuck because each one was very dependent on that disk copy. I could be wrong on that, but I know there were some games that they made that were like that. Next, we have some compatibility issues people have asked me about, and different things and postings, things in the game, or about the game. First, it was an older game, obviously, designed in the glory days of Windows XP. That game operating system is going passé. It's become quite obsolete and creates a lot of problems. However, if you go in, it runs fine in Windows 7 and Windows 8. In Windows 7, you do need to right-click on the icon or the program in the list, go into Properties, Compatibility, and choose Compatibility Mode, Windows XP Service Pack 3, choose 256 Color, and run as administrator. That way I've not had any problems with that running in Windows XP, and that's on a 64-bit system, so it definitely runs smooth there. If you have some other problems, issues, you may want to experiment with some of the other options just to see if that will work or resolve the problem. In Windows 8, I've not played it extensively there as any kind of test bed that I would be able to stand up and say there are no issues. But what I did play on a Windows 8 system was a 64-bit system, and it ran without a problem. I would not be able to say there were any obvious immediate issues. You may have to do the same thing on compatibility, but it seemed to run quite smooth. If all else fails and you cannot get it to run smoothly, it crashes, it's instability issues, whatever it is, if you just have some ongoing issues, you do have another option. It's a little technical, so if you're not very computer literate, you may not want to do this, but it is a valid option. If you are computer literate and you want to learn a few things and get into it, there is the Oracle VM Virtual Box. I'm not sure of the website, but you can Google that and you should be able to find the option and to download it. It's free, virtual machine. What it does is it creates a separate environment inside your computer, and when you create a machine on there, it may take you a few days to go through the manual and get everything set up and running. But if you do need to go to this level, you can then install an operating system of your choice. And in theory, you should be able to install DOS. I think 6.22 is the latest rendition of DOS. You could install Windows 3.1 if there's an old legacy game you like to play. Predominantly back then I played X-Wing and High Command. That's what I spent years of my life playing. So you can do that. I've only done it with Windows XP operating system. When you install it, do all the updates. Once you get it communicating with the outside world, do all your updates, everything's going, and then you may find even after doing that it may not work, but that's probably your best bet if the other options don't work. So worst case scenario, if you do go through all of that and find it still doesn't work, you at least learned a lot of things about computers in the process. That's all I can think of off the top of my head as far as virtualization tips on the game, technical aspects, anything along that line. I'm sure things will come to me later. I'm sure people will post that I forgot things, or why didn't I go into this, or criticizing something else, because that's all they have to do with their time. That said, feel free to comment or give some other suggestions or advice. I'll see you guys around, and game on!